Figured I should finally write this all down, mostly for the guys who might be going through the same shit. Maybe it will help someone avoid the mistakes I made, or at least show them there is light at the end of the tunnel. Fair warning, this is going to be a long one, and English is not my strong suit. I spent more time in the weight room than English class back in college. Laugh out loud. I was not always the mountain man I am now. 5 years ago, I was your typical corporate success story. The kind of guy who thought having a corner office and a hot wife meant I had made it. I was a former Division I linebacker turned technical sales director, pulling in serious cash before I hit 30. Looking back, I was probably compensating for a lot of childhood stuff. My mom died of cancer when I was 12, and dear old dad decided Jack Daniels was better company than his grieving kid. By 15, I was basically raising myself. Football saved my ass in high school. Coach Martinez became the father figure I needed. He taught me about discipline and working my ass off for what I wanted. I was not the most talented player, but I outworked everyone else. I got a scholarship to state, played linebacker all 4 years. I was not NFL material, but those years taught me how to push through pain and never quit. I graduated with a business degree and jumped straight into tech sales. By 28, I was crushing it. I had the penthouse apartment downtown, the BMW M5. Yeah, I was that douche. And I had a reputation for closing impossible deals. I hit the gym 5 days a week, kept my college football bulk while staying lean. Life was good, or at least I thought it was. I dated here and there, but nothing serious. Most women I met were either gold diggers or could not handle my work schedule. Then Sarah walked into my life and changed everything. It was at my buddy Mike's barbecue, one of those fancy affairs with craft beer and quinoa salads instead of Bud Light and potato chips. Mike had made it big in software development, married a yoga instructor, and gone full hipster. I was only there because he had been my roommate in college and still knew how to throw a party. That is when I saw her. Sarah stood out like a Ferrari in a parking lot full of Priuses. Tall, blonde, wearing this white sundress that showed off legs that went on forever. But it was not just her looks. She had this presence about her. While other women were clustered together taking selfies, she was in a heated debate with two tech bros about securities law. It turned out she was a corporate lawyer. Made partner at her firm faster than anyone in its history. I grabbed 2 beers and walked over. The tech bros were trying to explain cryptocurrency to her, not realizing she had probably forgotten more about financial regulations than they had ever known. Sounds like these guys really know their stuff, I said, giving her a knowing smirk. She caught my sarcasm and shot me this look that said she knew exactly what I was doing and was amused by it. Oh, absolutely, she played along. I am learning so much about how blockchain will revolutionize everything. The tech bros finally caught on that they were being played and slunk away. We spent the next 3 hours talking about everything and nothing. She was brilliant, ambitious, and somehow found my direct approach refreshing after dealing with bullshit office politics all day. We exchanged numbers, and I actually waited 2 days to text her. Yeah, I played that game back then. Our first date was at this hole-in-the-wall Italian place I knew. She showed up in a power suit straight from court, ordered her pasta in perfect Italian, then stole half my tiramisu while telling me about growing up in a small town and clawing her way into an Ivy League law school. Things moved fast after that. Within 6 months, we were practically living together. She kept a toothbrush at my place. I had a drawer at hers. At 8 months, I gave her a key. At 1 year, I proposed. I took her back to that Italian restaurant, had the ring brought out with a tiramisu. She said yes before I even finished asking. Looking back, maybe that should have been a red flag. Both of us rushing into something because it looked perfect on paper. The wedding was exactly what you would expect from 2 type A overachievers, carefully planned, expertly executed, and expensive as hell. We bought a place in one of those luxury high-rises downtown, started talking about kids and future vacation homes. Man, writing this now, I cannot believe how fucking naive I was. I thought I had it all figured out, the career, the wife, the life, classic American dream shit. But here is the thing about dreams. You eventually wake up, and sometimes, like in my case, the waking up part hurts like hell. The first 3 years of marriage were actually pretty solid, I am not going to lie. We were both career-driven and understood the grind. I was closing million-dollar deals, building my reputation as the guy who could land impossible clients. Sarah was making waves at her firm, the youngest female partner in their history. We had this rhythm. I would cook these massive meal prep Sundays so we would have healthy food all week, kept my gym gains going, and she would clear her schedule for our weekend adventures. Our sex life was insane back then, too. Sorry if too much information, but it is relevant to the story. We would sometimes meet up for lunch meetings that definitely were not about food. One time she showed up at my office wearing nothing but a trench coat under her suit. We ended up christening my desk after hours. Yeah, we were that couple. Probably annoyed the hell out of our friends with how perfect we seemed. But looking back, there were warning signs I ignored like a dumbass. Sarah started getting really into the whole corporate social scene. Her firm would have these fancy client events, partner dinners, charity galas, all that pretentious shit. At first, I went with her, played the role of the supportive husband. But man, those events were soul-crushing. A bunch of lawyers fake laughing at each other's jokes, trying to one-up each other with stories about their latest vacation homes or whatever. I started noticing how Sarah would light up around certain people at these events, especially this one senior partner. Let us call him James. He was a silver-haired dude, probably in his late 40s, wore those $5,000 suits, and had that smooth-talking thing down to an art. He would always make a point to come chat with us, but, looking back, he was really there for Sarah. He would ask her opinion on complex cases, praise her work in front of others. Classic grooming behavior, but I was too blind to see it. Around the 4-year mark of our marriage, things started changing. The late meetings became more frequent. She would come home at 9 or 10 p.m., sometimes later. When I would ask about her day, she would give these vague answers about complex cases and client emergencies. She started keeping her phone face down all the time too, another red flag I ignored like an idiot. Our weekend getaways stopped happening. She always had some excuse, a big case coming up, an important client meeting, court preparation. I tried to be understanding, I did not want to be that insecure husband who could not handle his wife's success. So, I focused on my own shit. I hit the gym harder, took on more clients, tried to keep busy. But the physical side of our marriage was dying. We went from that crazy couple who could not keep their hands off each other to barely having sex once a month. When we did, it felt different, like she was just going through the motions. She stopped initiating completely. If I tried to start something, she would usually say she was too tired or had a headache. Classic excuses, right? I tried talking to her about it multiple times. Our first conversation was actually pretty good. She admitted she had been stressed with work and promised to make more time for us. We booked this weekend trip to a fancy resort, and it seemed like things might get better. But then she canceled last minute because of some emergency client meeting. I found out later through office gossip that the whole partner team had gone to some charity golf event that weekend. That is when the arguments started. I would bring up her late nights. She would throw my business trips in my face, even though I was only gone 3 to 4 days a month. Maximum. She would get defensive about her phone, saying I was being controlling, classic gaslighting. But I did not know that term back then. I just knew something felt wrong but could not prove anything. I started compensating by trying to be the perfect husband. I would have dinner ready when she got home, give her space when she said she needed it, tried to be understanding about all the late nights and canceled plans. Looking back, I was acting like a damn doormat, lost sight of who I was, that confident athlete who used to command respect. The breaking point was not even one big thing. It was all these little moments adding up. The way she would step away to take phone calls. How she started going to the gym at weird hours saying she needed to de-stress. The new lingerie I found in her drawer that I never saw her wear. The subtle changes in how she dressed for work. Shorter skirts, tighter blouses. All classic signs. But you never want to believe that shit when it is happening to you. Catching your wife cheating is not like in the movies. There is no dramatic confrontation where you bust down a hotel room door, no passionate speech about betrayal. Reality is quieter, colder, and hits you in waves that make you question every memory you have ever had. Started with her car breaking down. She called me one morning saying her BMW would not start, asked if she could take my M5 to work. I did not think twice about it. We were still playing the perfect couple game after all. I offered to get her car towed to the dealership. She declined, said her firm had some special arrangement with a mechanic. That should have been my first clue. That night, I was working late in my home office when a notification popped up on my laptop. See, what Sarah did not know was that my car had this built-in tracking system, part of the performance package I had splurged on. I had never used it before, did not even think about it much. But that notification showed my car was parked at the Grand Marquis Hotel downtown at 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Something in my gut just knew. I called her office first, trying to prove myself wrong. Mrs. Walker left around 6, the security guard said. I called her cell straight to voicemail. I sent a casual text asking when she would be home. Working late at the office, babe, do not wait up. I sat there for maybe an hour just staring at that little dot on the map. You know that feeling when your entire world narrows down to one point. Everything gets quiet, but your mind is screaming. I grabbed my gym bag, threw in my laptop, and called an Uber. The Grand Marquis is one of those old-school luxury hotels where the rich go to have their affairs. Marble everything, brass fixtures, doormen who know how to be discreet. I walked in like I belonged there, straight past the front desk to the bar, and there they were. Sarah was sitting at a corner table with James, that silver-haired partner I mentioned before. She was wearing this red dress I had never seen, laughing at something he had said. His hand was on her thigh, and she was leaning into him like she used to lean into me. You know what is fucked up? My first thought was not anger. It was relief. Relief that I was not crazy, that all those little doubts and suspicions were not just paranoia. Then came the nausea, then the rage. Not the hot kind that makes you want to fight, but the cold kind that makes you want to destroy everything. I did not confront them, did not make a scene. I just sat at the bar, ordered a whiskey neat, and watched. I watched as my wife of 5 years played footsie with her boss. I watched as they finished their drinks and headed to the elevator. I watched as she pressed against him in a way she had not pressed against me in months. The bartender must have noticed something was off. "Rough night?" he asked. I smiled, finished my drink and said, "Actually just got a lot clearer." I paid my tab and walked out. But here is where it gets interesting. Instead of going home to wallow, I went to my 24-hour gym, loaded up the bar, and did the heaviest deadlift session of my life. I set a new personal record at 3 a.m. while my wife was fucking her boss in a hotel room. The pain in my lower back felt real, felt honest, unlike everything else in my life. When Sarah came home the next morning, she had this whole story ready about falling asleep at the office. I just nodded, made her coffee like usual, kissed her goodbye when she left for work. Then I started planning. I spent the next week gathering evidence. I set up a separate bank account, started moving my important documents to a safety deposit box. I hit the gym twice as hard, needed somewhere to put all that rage. The whole time, Sarah kept playing her part, even tried to initiate sex one night, probably guilt making her try to mark her territory. The next weekend I followed them again. This time they went to a different hotel. Then a week later another one. Each time I took pictures, saved the car's location data, kept a log. Not for divorce court, I did not want their money or a legal battle. I wanted certainty. I needed to kill any hope of reconciliation, any chance I might weaken and try to work things out. The real kicker, I found out through office gossip that James was known for this shit. He had done it with 2 other young lawyers before Sarah. Both ended up leaving the firm quietly. I guess Sarah thought she was different, special enough to make him leave his wife and kids. You want to know the worst part? We had been trying for a baby. All those fertility apps on her phone, the ovulation tracking, the prenatal vitamins in our bathroom cabinet, all while she was raw-dogging her boss in hotel rooms. That thought still makes me sick. The night I watched my wife go into that last hotel, I just started driving. No destination in mind, I just needed to put distance between me and the shit show my life had become. I ended up at this place called the Iron Horse, some dive bar about 50 miles outside the city. I must have looked as bad as I felt because the bartender, this older lady named Sue, took one look at me and poured a double without asking. "On the house, honey," she said. "You look like you have seen the devil." I laughed for the first time in weeks, because yeah, that is exactly what it felt like. That is when Jack walked in. Picture a guy who looks like he walked straight out of a Marlboro ad. Weathered face, full beard, flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, showing forearms covered in faded tattoos. He ordered a beer, looked over at me, and said something I will never forget. "Brother, you have got the look of a man who just found out his whole life has been a lie." It turned out Jack was a former Force Recon Marine, did 3 tours in Afghanistan before coming home to find his wife shacking up with his business partner. Instead of going nuclear, his words, he sold his share of the business, bought 100 acres in the mountains, and built a new life away from what he called all the plastic people and their plastic lives. We talked for hours, not the drunk, sloppy kind of talking you usually get in bars, but real talk. He had been through almost exactly what I was going through, but he was 10 years down the road. He had this calm energy about him, like someone who had walked through hell and came out stronger. "Listen," he said around midnight. "I have got this piece of land up in the mountains. The previous owner left an Airstream trailer there, 28 feet. It needs some work, but it is solid. I have been meaning to fix it up, but have not had the time. If you are interested in getting away from everything, it is yours for a fair price." Any other night, I would have thought he was crazy. Some random guy in a bar offering me a trailer in the mountains. Sounds like the start of a horror movie, right? But something about Jack felt genuine. Maybe it was the way he talked about his own experience, or how he did not try to sell me on some bullshit about everything happens for a reason. He pulled out his phone and showed me pictures of the property. The trailer was parked on this clearing overlooking a valley surrounded by pine trees. It had a deck someone had built onto it years ago. It needed repair, but the bones were good. The land around it was wild, with hiking trails, fishing spots, even an old fire pit. The property has got good water from a natural spring, Jack explained. Solar panels for power, though they need some updating. Propane for heat and cooking. It is rough living at first, but that is kind of the point. It forces you to focus on what is real. Then he said something that really hit home. You can either let this break you, or you can use it to rebuild yourself into something stronger. Right now, you are in the cocoon phase. What comes out is up to you. I stayed at the bar until closing time, just talking with Jack about everything. The affair, my career, the life I thought I was building. He listened without judgment, occasionally throwing in bits of wisdom that did not sound like the usual relationship advice bullshit. Before we left, he wrote down his number and the coordinates of the trailer on a napkin. Take a few days, he said. Think it over. The property is not going anywhere, but if you want my advice, sometimes the best revenge is becoming someone your ex would not even recognize. I drove back to the city that night with my head clearer than it had been in months. The sun was coming up as I pulled into our apartment as parking garage, and I sat there watching Sarah's BMW in its assigned spot, thinking about how different my life could be. The Airstream would need work, the land would be isolated. No more fancy restaurants, no more corporate parties, no more pretending to care about corner offices and partnership tracks. Just me, the mountains, and the kind of honest work that leaves your muscles sore and your mind quiet. I called in sick to work that day, the first time in 3 years. I spent the morning researching what it would take to live off the grid. By afternoon, I had a list of everything I would need to know: solar power systems, water filtration, basic construction. It was like planning a mission, and for the first time since discovering Sarah's affair, I felt something like hope. The week after meeting Jack, I went into what I can only describe as operational mode. Maybe it was all those military documentaries I had watched, or maybe it was just my brain's way of dealing with the clusterfuck my life had become. But I approached leaving my marriage like I was planning a tactical mission. The first step was reconnaissance. I spent a Saturday working late to drive up and check out the Airstream. Jack met me there in his beat-up Ford F-250, looking exactly like he had in the bar, except now he was wearing work boots caked in mud and had a tool belt around his waist. The property was even better than the pictures, 20 acres of pure freedom backing up against national forest land. The Airstream needed work, no doubt about it. The previous owner had left it there years ago, and nature had started reclaiming it. But the frame was solid aluminum, no rust. Inside was dusty, but structurally sound. Original appliances still worked when we tested them with a generator Jack brought. The deck needed some boards replaced, but the foundation posts were set deep and level. It will take work, Jack said, kicking one of the trailer's tires. But that is the point. A man needs work he can see, touch, not that digital bullshit you have been doing. He was not wrong. Looking at that trailer, I could already picture the improvements I would make, the skills I would need to learn. We negotiated a price that was more than fair, probably too fair honestly, but Jack said he cared more about who was living on his land than making a profit. We shook hands on it, and suddenly I had a backup plan, a way out. The relief I felt was like taking off a weighted vest I had been wearing for months. Back in the city, I started what I called Operation Ghost Protocol. Yeah, I am a Mission Impossible fan, sue me. First priority was money. I had always kept my own savings account. One good thing about growing up poor is you never fully trust joint accounts. I started moving money in small amounts, nothing that would trigger any alerts. I canceled all our shared credit cards except one, which I left for Sarah to use. Let her dig her own grave there. Next was documentation: birth certificate, passport, social security card, car title. All the important stuff went into a safety deposit box at a bank Sarah did not know about. I downloaded all our bank statements, credit card bills, everything that showed our life together. Not for divorce court, I did not want her money or to drag this out, but I needed proof for myself. Needed to kill any chance I might look back with rose-colored glasses. The physical exit took longer to plan. Sarah had this whole week-long conference coming up in New York. At least that is what she told me. I found out through some office gossip it was actually a partner retreat at some resort upstate. James would be there, of course. Perfect timing. I started moving things out gradually. I hit the gym at 5 a.m., took a few items each time in my gym bag: clothes, books, electronics, anything small enough to not be noticed. I rented a storage unit near Jack's property, made trips on weekends when Sarah was working. She was so caught up in her affair fog, she did not even notice half her husband's stuff disappearing. The hardest part was acting normal. Every morning making coffee like nothing was wrong, every night listening to her lies about working late. She even started being more affectionate, probably guilt making her try to mark her territory. The old me would have been excited by this attention. The new me just felt disgusted. One night, about 2 weeks before her conference, she tried to initiate sex. I made an excuse about being tired. She got this look on her face, hurt, confused, maybe even a little scared. I think she was starting to realize something was off. But by then it was too late. I was already gone emotionally, just waiting for the right moment to be gone physically. Meanwhile, I was preparing the Airstream. I spent every free moment up there learning from Jack. He taught me about solar power systems, how to fix plumbing, basic carpentry. City boy got good hands, he would say whenever I picked up a new skill quickly. I started feeling more pride in fixing a leaky pipe than I ever did closing $1 million deal. The transformation was not just mental. All that physical work, plus my renewed focus at the gym, started changing my body. I lost that soft office worker look, replaced it with functional muscle. I grew a beard for the first time in my life, started wearing work boots instead of dress shoes. Small changes, but each one felt like shedding another layer of my old life. The week of the conference finally came. Sarah was practically glowing with excitement as she packed, kept talking about all the networking opportunities ahead. I helped her carry her suitcase to her car, kissed her goodbye like a loving husband should, watched her drive away knowing it was the last time I would see her as my wife. That first morning waking up in the Airstream was something else. No alarm clock, no morning commute, no pretending to care about quarterly projections, just the sound of wind in the pines and birds I could not name yet. The air smelled different up there. Clean in a way city air never is, sharp with pine needles and mountain sage. The transformation did not happen overnight. The first few weeks were rough, I am not going to lie. I discovered pretty quick that watching YouTube tutorials about off-grid living is not the same as actually doing it. The first time I tried to light the propane stove, I nearly singed my eyebrows off. The solar system needed more work than I thought, and I spent 3 days without power before figuring out how to properly wire the new batteries Jack helped me get. But here is the thing about physical problems, they are honest. When a pipe leaks, you fix it or you get wet. When the generator will not start, you figure it out, or you sit in the dark. No office politics, no hidden agendas, no gaslighting, just cause and effect, problem and solution. Jack became something between a mentor and the father I never really had. He would stop by most mornings on his way to check his cattle, usually with some new project in mind. Mountain man training, he called it. He taught me how to split firewood properly, how to identify edible plants, how to read weather patterns in the clouds. Dude was like a walking encyclopedia of practical knowledge. The physical changes came first. All that manual labor plus my regular workouts transformed my body in ways no gym routine ever had. I lost that last bit of office pudge, replaced it with the kind of functional strength you get from actually using your body for work. My hands got calloused, my face got weathered, and my designer clothes stopped fitting. Shoulders too broad now, waist too lean. I started learning tracking from Jack's friend Marcus, an old Navajo guy who had lived in these mountains his whole life. He would laugh at my city boy mistakes, but teach me anyway. I learned to read animal signs, to move quietly through the woods, to understand the mountain's rhythms. The first time I successfully tracked a deer for 2 miles, Marcus just nodded and said, "Now you are starting to see." It meant more to me than any corporate award ever did. The mental changes were slower but deeper. I used to check my phone every 5 minutes. Now I would go days without looking at it. I started sleeping better, thinking clearer. The constant background anxiety of corporate life faded away. Even my dreams changed. Instead of stress dreams about missed deadlines, I dreamed about the mountains, about building things with my hands. Sarah tried to contact me, of course, when she got back from her conference and found me gone. My phone blew up with calls and texts. Classic stages of a cheater getting caught. First, denial, what are you talking about? Then minimizing, it was just a few times, then blame shifting, you were always working, and finally fake remorse, I will do anything to fix this. I read her messages sometimes, sitting on my deck watching the sunset. They affected me less and less each time. It was like reading about someone else's life. Someone I used to be, but was not anymore. The guy she was texting, the corporate achiever, the understanding husband, the guy who cared about status and appearances. He did not exist anymore. Around month 3, something interesting happened. I started getting attention from women in town when I would go in for supplies. Not the kind of attention I used to get in the city. No gold diggers here, no status seekers. These women were different, more real somehow. I had a few casual dates, nothing serious. I was not ready for that yet, and honestly, I was enjoying my solitude too much. Then I met Emma. I was running one of the mountain trails I had started mapping out, and came across her trying to change a flat tire on her Jeep. She had the right tools but was fighting with a rusted lug nut. I offered to help, expecting the usual damsel in distress routine. Instead, she handed me the wrench and said, "Good, you can be the breaker bar while I figure out why my global positioning system is glitching." It turned out she was an Army combat medic turned wilderness guide, did survival courses for corporate teams, ironic, right, and search and rescue work. No makeup, hair in a practical braid, mud on her boots, and absolutely zero fucks given about any of it. We ended up talking for an hour about different trail routes and the best spots for winter camping. Our first date was not dinner and drinks. She invited me to help her clear a new trail section she was mapping. 6 hours of hard work, shared trail mix, and conversations about everything from military medicine to mountain ecology. No pretense, no games, just two people getting to know each other while doing something real. Funny how life works sometimes. You think you have completely moved on, built this whole new existence, and then the past comes knocking at your door. In my case, it came in the form of Sarah walking into my regular coffee shop in town, exactly 1 year and 3 months after I left. I had gotten into the habit of going there every Saturday morning to handle my consulting work. The owner, Mike, was an old Marine buddy of Jack's, who did not mind me camping out with my laptop for a few hours. The place had decent wireless fidelity and even better coffee. None of that fancy city stuff, just strong black coffee that could wake the dead. I was focused on my laptop when I heard someone gasp. I looked up and there she was, Sarah, standing by the counter, staring at me like she had seen a ghost. I guess in a way, she had. The Sarah I remembered always looked expensive, designer everything, perfect makeup, not a hair out of place. This Sarah looked different, still well-dressed, but something was off. Tired around the eyes maybe, or just real in a way she never let herself be before. "Paul," her voice was small and certain, nothing like the confident corporate lawyer I had been married to. "I have been looking everywhere for you." I found out later that she had hired a private investigator who tracked me through my consulting work. The private investigator had followed my digital footprint to this town, and Sarah had spent the last 3 weekends hanging around hoping to run into me. Part of me was annoyed that my sanctuary had been breached, but mostly I just felt nothing, like watching a movie about someone else's life. We ended up sitting at a table outside. Mike caught my eye through the window, raised an eyebrow in question. I gave him a small nod. I was okay. I had my phone ready to text Emma if I needed backup, but this was something I needed to handle myself. Sarah started with the expected stuff, how sorry she was, how the affair had been a huge mistake, how everything had fallen apart after I left. Turns out karma is a bigger bitch than any revenge could have planned. The affair came out at her firm when James tried to blame her for some missed deadlines. She got pushed out, he got transferred to another office, and his wife took him for everything in the divorce. "I lost everything," she said, starting to cry. "The job, the reputation, our home, you." She reached for my hand across the table. I pulled back, not harsh, just firm. The old Paul would have felt guilty, would have wanted to comfort her. The new me just felt clear. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, not unkindly, just directly. "Mountain living teaches you to cut through bullshit." "I want another chance," she said. "I know I do not deserve it, but I have changed. I have been in therapy working on myself. I miss us, miss what we had, what we could have again." That is when it hit me. She had not changed at all. She was still living in that city mindset where everything is a negotiation, where enough pretty words can fix any problem. She was looking at me, but she was not seeing me. She was seeing the old Paul, the guy in designer suits who cared about status and appearances. That guy died the day I drove up this mountain. "There is no us," I said quietly. "It has not been since the day you decided to sleep with James. What we had was not real. It was two people playing roles we thought we were supposed to play. I am not that person anymore, and I do not want to be." She tried arguing, of course, said we could start fresh, move to a new city, build a new life. She told me about a job offer she had in Seattle, how I could consult from anywhere. She would even try the mountain life if that is what I wanted. Classic Sarah, thinking everything could be negotiated, managed, controlled. That is when Emma showed up. We had had plans to go climbing later and she was early. She walked up in her usual way, muddy boots, climbing gear on her back, that quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Sarah's eyes widened as Emma gave me a quick kiss and sat down. The contrast between them was almost funny. Sarah in her city clothes trying to hide her discomfort at the dust and wind. Emma comfortable in her own skin, absently checking the weather patterns in the clouds, while I made introductions, past and present, sitting at the same table. "I should go," Sarah said finally. She looked defeated, but for the first time, maybe honest. "You really have changed, have not you?" "We both did," I answered, "just in different directions." I watched her walk to her rental car, designer heels wobbling on the gravel. Emma squeezed my hand but did not say anything. She did not need to. That is the thing about finding someone who really knows you. Words become optional. Later that night, sitting on my deck watching the sunset, Emma asked if I regretted any of it. The marriage, the betrayal, the escape to the mountains. I thought about it for a while, listening to the wind in the pines and the distant howl of a coyote. "No," I said finally. "I had to get lost to find my way home."